and local marketing power. The SMB Marketplace is hosted exclusively on KBLA1580.com and is accessible from all our social media channels. Whether you're a small mom and pop restaurant, a car dealership, or a professional practitioner, we invite you to join in this new KBLA Talk 1580 initiative to promote your business. As a Black-owned small business, you don't want to miss this unique opportunity to gain new customers on KBLA Talk 1580. For more information, contact us today at smb@kbla1580.com. That's smb@kbla1580.com. At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black.
And if I share with you my story, would you share your shadow with me? Time to get it. Hey,
yeah, it's for the people. This is street radio for unsung hero. Riding in the Rego, trying to stay legal. My daughter found Nemo, I found a new primo. Yeah, you know how we do it for the people and the struggle of the brothers and the folks. The lovers of the dope, experiment to discover hope. Scuffle for notes, the rougher I wrote, times was harder. Went from rock starter to the voice of a martyr. Why white folk focus on dogs and yoga. My people on the low end trying to ball and get over. Lyrics are like liquor for the fallen soldier. From the bounce to the ounce, it's all our culture. Every day we hustling, trying to get them customers. Law we ain't trusting them, thick bras we lusting them. Sick and tired of punching it. I look on the bus at them. When I see them struggling, I think I'm touching them.
I'm Tavis Smiley, and I'm delighted to have you with us in this hour of our program today. In this hour, as promised, a conversation with professor, culture reporter, and author Ariane Nettles, who dissects the impact and influence of Black Chicago on the culture with her new book, We Are the Culture, Black Chicago's Influence on Everything. That's a bold title. We Are the Culture, Black Chicago's Influence on Everything. It's a bold title, but it's hard to argue. It is hard to argue the impact that Chicago has had and continues to have on the culture, its influence on a little bit of everything. We are headed to Chicago in just a couple of weeks for the Democratic National Convention. So we have had a series of conversations about Chicago, getting us ready for our big trip. Of course, I love Chicago, my favorite city. So any excuse to hang out in Chicago, I'm happy to accommodate. I'm pleased to have Ariane Nettles on this program right now. Ariane, how are you today?
I am great. Thank you so much for having me.
It's my great honor to have you on this program. I mentioned, you heard me say a moment ago, that's a pretty bold title. I mean, it's bold, it's brash, you sticking your chest out. I mean, Chicago, I think, can back it up, but just talk to me about that title for starters.
Yes. So the funny thing is, initially, I really didn't think they were going to let me keep that title. But I thought about it because when thinking through the content of the book, I started to think about all the different ways that Chicago has played this really important role in, what we see as popular culture today. But when you ask people of what cities do you think have the biggest influence, Chicago is not always on everybody's minds, right? And so I really wanted to remind people, no, we have an influence on everything. Not to say that we are the only great city, right? I have so much respect for so many amazing places, but our impact on all these different areas, it just can't be overstated.
Yep. When you think about Chicago, and to your point a moment ago that you weren't sure they were going to let you keep this title, one of the frames in which Chicago is discussed continuously, and as long as the right continues to press the way they do, this frame will not change anytime soon. And that is looking at Chicago, you know where I'm going here, through the issue of policing, through the issue of gun violence, through the issue of race. Let me just take those one at a time. Let me just start with the notion of gun violence. How can we look at Chicago and see it as, a city that's had an outsized impact on the culture, as your subtitle suggests, Black Chicago's influence on everything, when the lens through which many people want us to see Chicago is through the lens of gun violence?
Yeah. And I think that, when we think about violence, especially in big cities like Chicago, New York, Detroit, a lot of times we are viewing the violence and not perhaps the issues that cause the violence, right? So like in a city like Chicago, which has been highly segregated, there are reasons why it's been segregated for so long. We know that there have been times throughout history where Black people would try to move to other parts of town, and our people's houses would be bombed, right? Like they're redlining and not allowing people to get mortgages and move into certain neighborhoods. These things directly have contributed to the violence that we see today, right? This idea of creating a have and a have-not system. And so I think that it's easy to make Chicago the punching bag for something like gun violence when it is an issue that we have around the country and that, we really should be addressing everywhere.
So you think the issue is as real as rain, but you just think it's unfair given how Chicago is viewed?
Yes, absolutely, right? So I think it would be really unfair to say that, like, every place is just 100% safe and there's no issues with gun violence, right? Like, I've lost people in my family who I've loved to gun violence, and that's a story that, so many people have where, we know that it's a thing. Yeah. But if we talk about the reasons behind it, it's also really similar in other places, but it does feel very exacerbated in a city because it's so many of us, the number of people we have here, the sheer number of Black folks that we got in the city, right? Yeah. And then us being segregated and still very much concentrated in certain parts of the city.
I mean, I think part of the reason, one of the reasons at least, why this storyline about Chicago exists, I talk to my friend Father Michael Flagree about this all the time. I think one of the reasons why this storyline persists, Ariane, is because the numbers are so arresting on any given weekend during the summer. The numbers are just outrageous. It makes for good headlines, right? The numbers, and then the issue seems to be unabated. With all due respect to my friend Mayor Brandon and other mayors prior to him, who I have known, the numbers just seem to be unabated, and so the storyline about Chicago being one of gun violence doesn't go anywhere because the numbers seem to not drop consistently or appreciably. And again, the whole issue is just unabated. We'll talk about that part and a great deal more. Chicago, like most world cities, is complex, but also full of a lot of culture. As I said earlier, it's hard to argue with the title of the book, Ariane Nettles' text, We Are the Culture, Black Chicago's Influence on Everything. We'll talk a great deal more about that everything when we come forward on Tavis Smiley. This is just a good opportunity this hour to play some of the best of Chicago's music. I will tell you this, when it comes to black music, y'all can't face Chicago. I was debating somebody a few weeks ago about music, and I said, give me the best of New York, give me the best of LA, give me the best of Dallas, the best of Miami. Y'all can't face Chicago. Think about all the artists who come out of Chicago. We started with Common, and these are the emotions. It's the best of Chicago on Tavis Smiley.
Generous listening. Charitable listening. It's why everybody wants to talk to Tavis. The conversation continues when we come forward.
Make a move into a home of your own. With City National Bank's Ladder Up Home Loan Grant, you could receive up to $20,000 that you never need to pay back. Use it toward your down payment, save on closing costs, or to buy down your mortgage rate. Find out more at cnb.com/ladderuphome. City National, here for every stage of the journey. Property must be in a qualifying market in California, New York, or New Jersey. Additional terms and conditions apply. Not all applicants will qualify. Terms are subject to change without notice. City National Bank is an equal housing lender. Member FDIC. NMLS number 536994.
This is it. Shop the Lowe's Closeout event to get up to 70% off select major appliances for your home. Plus, get up to 60% off select patio furniture and accessories for your outdoor spaces. So hurry into your local store today because these deals are too good to last. Shop them now before they're gone because Lowe's knows savings. Lowe's knows home improvement. Valid through 8/7 while supplies last. Selection varies by location.
The smarter way to clean your floors. It's time to make the swap. Swiffer Power Mop.
Introducing the new Swiffer Power Mop. the all-in-one tool that gives you a mop and bucket clean in half the time. The solution's built right in, so no heavy bucket, and the pad has hundreds of scrubbing strips to get deep into grout. Don't mop harder, mop smarter.
Switch for Power Mop. Switch for Power Mop.
Eggs are a staple in our diets, and there's only one egg with more delicious farm fresh taste plus superior nutrition. Eggland's Best. With more vitamins, including 6 times more vitamin D and 10 times more vitamin E, plus 25% less saturated fat than ordinary eggs. Available in so many delicious varieties: classic, cage-free, and organic. Eggland's Best. Better taste, better nutrition, better eggs.
Downy Rinse and Refresh. Break up with stinky clothes.
Rinse it out.
Every now and then I get a little bit tired of the stinks that just will never come out.
Going down in the rinse change.
Every now and then I rinse it out. One wash and it delivers. One wash, it smells so clean. Downy Rinse and Refresh, it's a dream.
Downy Rinse and Refresh removes 100% of odor in just one wash. Guaranteed.
Freedom is an endless meeting. So let's get back to it with Tavis Smiley.
Listen, Eden is kingdom. An Eden mindset is a kingdom mindset.
Let me hear ya. Where my Eden citizens at? Where my Eden citizens at? Where you at? Let me see you do your hands like this. Here we go.
When God made man, he made a spirit. It was his plan that we live blessed. The tempter came. We were distracted. The tempter came. And we fell. We were deemed to live a life that's beautiful. A life that's full. A life that's rich and plentiful. It is my goal to remind you of this principle. We're redeemed. A newborn soul.
Where my Eden citizens at? Let me hear you say.
Let's get back to Eden. Live on top of the world.
Yeah, sing it to somebody.
Let's get back to Eden. Live on top of the world.
Tell somebody.
Man, Donald Lawrence sounds good. I hate to step on him, but we're talking about all things Chicago in this hour. Let that ride for a second, Miles. Talking about Chicago, all things Chicago. Our guest is Ariane Nettles. Her book is called We Are the Culture. Black Chicago's influence on everything. We just talking about music for a second here. During the break, Miles and I got into a conversation about Detroit. I mentioned cities that can't fade Chicago. Detroit is strong. Don't get me wrong. You can start and stop with the GOATs, Stevie and Aretha. You can stop there. We ain't got to go to Smokey, one of the greatest songwriters of all time. We ain't got to go to Anita Baker. We ain't got to go to Bob Seger. I can do this all day long just in Detroit. But Chicago is hegemonic in every genre of black music. In rap, we ain't got the Kanye yet. We ain't got the Chance the Rapper yet. We played a little Common. Rhyme Fest. I mean, in the rap, hip-hop category, in the gospel category, there's Donald Lawrence. We ain't got the Smokey Norfolk. I ain't got the Inez Andrews. I can do this all day long. In the gospel category, in the pop category, Chicago. I'll take the debate with anybody, but it's hard to beat Chicago on the music front, literally in every music genre there is. Again, the book is called We Are the Culture. Black Chicago's influence on everything. Before we get to the good stuff, I was saying earlier, Ariane, you and I were talking about the fact that in this present moment, oftentimes I think Chicago isn't regarded, isn't respected for its influence on the culture, given the lens these days through which we see Chicago. And that lens, I think, oftentimes begins and ends with the notion of violence, gun violence in particular. And I was saying to you, I think that narrative extends because the numbers just don't seem to ever abate, and the issue just doesn't go anywhere.
Yeah. And I mean, I think it's a fair thing, right? If you are looking at just like the sheer numbers, you would think that Chicago is the murder capital of the United States, which we know per capita is not true. And so, but these are big numbers, right? But these are also big numbers for a really big city. And so again, I do not want to downplay this at all. You know, like gun violence is a really serious issue. But I think that even part of that, right, you know, like in the book, I do talk about like drill music. And so, you know, drill music has been vilified so much. But when you think about it as an art form, whether you like it or not, that's totally fine. But it became like the voice of this young Black generation that were kind of like screaming from the rooftops to say, like, I don't feel safe. This is how I can think to protect myself and my family and my loved ones, right? And now you see drill music being in places like London and New York, right? People forget that it even came here, or that it started here in Chicago. And so even the violence, even something like gun violence can make its way into art, and then sometimes become a way for people to express themselves.
Yeah. This book makes a strong case for why Chicago is the culture. It makes a strong case for the undeniable influence of Black Chicago on its influence on everything, as Ariane puts it in her subtitle. Let me just take a second to just walk you through the chapters, the sections, I should say, of the book. I think by giving you a sense of the sections in the book, you'll get a sense of the argument that she makes, and then we'll pick out a few for the rest of the hour and sort of walk through them as she will. Part 1 is called "Black News Cannot Be Silenced: The Creation of the Defender." Talking here about the Chicago Defender. We know the NABJ was just in Chicago and all the drama around the day that Donald Trump appeared. Yeah. But she starts the book as a journalist herself with part 1 being titled, "Black News Cannot Be Silenced: The Creation of the Defender." We'll get back to that, I promise. Part 2, "And with them they brought the blues." We just had a conversation on this program last week about Chicago blues as part of our series of conversations about Chicago as we make our way to the Windy City in a couple of weeks for the DNC. And so we talked last week about the Chicago blues, another argument that Ariana makes for why y'all can't fade Chicago. Part 3, "You Ain't Heard Nothing Yet." Now she gets into the sound of radio, the voice of Chicago. I am honored to be heard right now on WVON, the voice of the Negro in Chicago. My station here in LA is just 3 years old. They're past 60 years of age on WVON in Chicago. They've been doing it a long time, and I'm happy to celebrate the success of that station in the Windy City. But this notion that you ain't heard nothing yet is what she delves into in part 3. In part 4, "And you say Shy City?" And you say Shy City? We'll let her unpack that as we move through. Part 5 is "Black Life in Print." Black Life in Print. I've told y'all many times on this program that until he passed away, I would never go to Chicago for anything without going down to Michigan Ave to the Johnson Publishing headquarters and having lunch with Mr. Johnson. I loved, and miss dearly my friend John H. Johnson and Ebony and Jet magazine that he founded, based in Chicago, and all that came out of that in terms of telling our stories. Here again, another argument, Black Life in Print, for why you can't fade Chicago, Black Chicago, and its influence on everything. Part 6, Black Luxury Baby. Black Luxury Baby. We'll talk about all the skincare products and the hair care products for Black people that were done in laboratories and sold out of Chicago. Part 7, Hair That Makes a Statement. We'll talk about that part. Part 8, Black Representation on the Big and Small Screens. Think about all the great actors, all the great performers. We talked about music a moment ago. But think about all the performers born and raised in the city of Chicago. Part 9, The Oprah Effect. Need I say more? The Oprah Effect. We're talking about Black Chicago's influence on the culture, y'all. Part 10, Sports Cool. Ever heard of a guy named Michael Jordan? We are talking about. Ever heard of a guy named Gale Sayers? We are talking. I could do this all day long. Talking about the impact on the Black culture, the city of Chicago, in sports. And then finally, the arts and the influence of Black people on the arts out of the city of Chicago. So I just want to give you a sense of the sections of the book, and you now have a better understanding of the argument that Ariane makes in this book for why We Are the Culture, Black Chicago's Influence on Everything, the title of her book. All right, Ariane, I want to just do that to give people I only have an hour here, but I want to give them a sense of your argument for those who are wondering, what's the argument? How can she stand behind this? Now they get a sense based on the table of contents of what they're going to read when they get into the book about why Chicago is all that and then some. Let me jump now back to part number 1. Black news cannot be silenced, the creation of the defender. I'm curious as to why. I thought it was a great choice. But why would you start a book about the influence of a city on black culture, but start squarely with news, with information? I found that fascinating, but I'm glad you went there.
Yeah. Thank you so much. So initially, it wasn't going to be first. But as I started writing, I thought so much, and I realized how through the lens of news, we can see so many important events and really the changing demographics of Chicago. Because really, you can't talk about Chicago without talking about the Great Migration and really understanding it, digging deep into the Great Migration, and then also the complications that came with the Great Migration. Because I think that it is, sometimes fluffed up a bit where, there's this thought that people came to Chicago and everything was perfect, right? And that's not true. Of course, we know that maybe, the racism that our ancestors faced when they came to Chicago was different. But it was still very much things to kind of overcome. And one thing that I really wanted to do with this book was to talk about how, Black folks, we overcame in spite of the things that were thrown in front of us. All the art and the beauty and the culture that we created in spite of those things. And so I really ended up moving that news to the front because as a journalist, that's how I view the world, like these important historical events that kind of created Chicago. And if I'm talking about Black Chicago, I felt that people needed to understand, like, what do I mean by that, right? Like, what is Black Chicago? Like, what is the demographics? What are the key events that are just, like, really important to understand in this city?
Let me just detour right quick or just pause. I don't want to say detour, pause, or pivot. Pivot may be a better word. What did you make of all the drama last week at the NABJ in Chicago?
So I was definitely a person that was in the camp of, this was not needed, that Trump's presence was not needed. And I think to be clear for a lot of people is that NABJ is an advocacy organization. Like, it's not a newsroom. So, like, you make these decisions in your newsroom, like, do we do this interview? Do we not do this interview? But this is not a newsroom, right? And realistically, when we talk about, like, a place like, for example, an ABC, a major network, we'll likely definitely say we're going to always interview both candidates, no matter how vile or they are, no matter if they are attacking democracy, right? But if you talk about, like, the Black press, you read historical accounts and you read stories, and we necessarily, and I kind of put myself in the Black press because I've often worked at Black organizations, and I think that's kind of, a difference where you're like, no, I don't have to platform this person if I don't want to. If I don't think it's going to be beneficial to my audience, then we shouldn't. And you know that Trump lies. He does not tell the truth. And so you can't hold him accountable. You can't put his feet to the fire because he's not going to answer. And you're just going to bring more hate, which in a space that is supposed to be really a healing bomb for Black journalists, it's supposed to be you come to NABJ and whatever's been going on in your own newsroom, wherever you've come from, you kind of don't usually have to deal with that there. And so to have to face more vile rhetoric, it was really disappointing. And also just for the simple fact that if you were going to NABJ, like for, the professional development situations, there's no way that your editor would not call you and say, oh, well, since you're at NABJ now, you have to spend all Wednesday covering this, Trump event. So it also is taken away from people's opportunities. So
we could spend an hour or two on this book, and I don't have that kind of time today, unfortunately. Let me just, in the 2 minutes I have left, let me just ask you to say a quick word about the two, I think, towering figures in media out of Chicago, John H. Johnson and Oprah. Say a word about both of them in 2 minutes.
Yes. I'll say that when it comes to John H. Johnson, he, really was innovative in how he created his multiple magazines. And I think that when we talk about like being able to go to a grocery store and look at like the magazines lined up and just to be able to see us doing things, right? Like going on vacation, hanging out at the beach, like John H. Johnson made sure that we could do that. And there's so many other things that he did, of course, but like that's my 1 minute, my personal takeaway. And then when it comes to Oprah, I think that Oprah's influence of like, we look at her as being like a boss in building this thing. And she really attributes that to being in Chicago and Chicago being her home. So, it also shows how just like so many other people, they come to Chicago and you can make and create this life for yourself in this hustling city, the city of work, that maybe doesn't happen everywhere. And so we look at, there's so many lessons that you get from a person like Oprah being iconic. And I think that the city was part of creating this, her being able to say, like, she was one of the first people, to say, like, she had this episode where she had KKK members on, and she decided that she was not going to be used like that again, that she was not going to let them take over her show because they were using her show as a platform for hate, and she decided that that's not what she was doing. So I look at lessons like that, and it's taught me how to, kind of take control over things.
No, there's so much in this book. I'm thinking about the impact of the literary giants out of Chicago. I'm thinking Gwendolyn Brooks, the first black person to win a Pulitzer Prize. I mean, that's epic Chicago. Again, so much skin and hair, all the things that make up the lives that we live. So much of this has been impacted by the city of Chicago and people who've done their work and witness in the Windy City. The book is called We Are the Culture, Black Chicago's Influence on Everything. The author is Ariane Nettles. Wish I had more time, but speaking of NABJ, when we come forward, we'll have a conversation with one of the three sisters who questioned Donald Trump, who queried him last week at that convention. We'll do that in a moment. Ariane, congrats on the book. Good to have you on this program.
Thank you. Such an honor.
Thank you. More of Tavis Smiley when we come forward.
Why does Tavis say when we come forward? Because he's not going back. And you don't have to go back either. Forward ever, backward never. More of Tavis Smiley when we come forward.
Paid for by government.com. Did you know the United States Mint has issued a new Morgan silver dollar coin in proof condition for the first time? Not only that, they are also minted in 99.9% pure silver for the first time ever in history. Coin experts are calling this an amazing opportunity for anyone that knows the enduring popularity of Morgans. But you must hurry. Only 400,000 of these legal tender silver dollars were issued. These first ever Morgan silver dollars are brand new with stunning mirror-like finish, minted by the iconic San Francisco Mint. Call now and you're guaranteed a new first ever 99.9% pure silver proof Morgan dollar. To learn more, call 1-800-973-9717. If you order now, you will receive a free coin collector bonus pack, a $25 value, free with every order. Call 1-800-973-9717 now to secure your new Morgan silver dollars before they are gone. That's 1-800-973-9717.
I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. Hurricane Debbie has made landfall in Florida. The National Hurricane Center now reporting the Category 1 storm came ashore in the state's Big Bend area with 80-mile-per-hour winds. The death of a black man who was killed when he was pinned to the ground by security officers outside of a Milwaukee, Wisconsin hotel is being ruled a homicide. Devontae Mitchell's autopsy report said that he died from restraint asphyxia and toxic effects of cocaine and methamphetamine. The Vatican is speaking out about the opening ceremony of the Paris Olympics. Critics of the opening ceremony took issue with a scene they believed featured drag queen performers depicting Leonardo da Vinci's The Last Supper. The Vatican said the opening ceremony displayed a lack of respect for others. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network, and BINnews.com.
Hi, I'm Kyle at Blindster.com. At Blindster, we offer custom-made faux wood and real wood blinds and shutters, cellular shades, Roman shades, bamboo shades, exterior shades, and more, all at factory direct prices. Don't pay too much for new blinds. Go to Blindster.com.
Is this the This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
Simone Biles came up short in her quest for 5 gold medals in the Summer Olympics, but she leaves Paris as one of the most decorated gymnasts in the history of the sport and perhaps the greatest of all time. Simone won the silver medal in the floor exercise. She failed during her balance beam routine and did not score high enough for a silver or bronze. Simone ended up with 3 gold medals and 1 silver in Paris. She now has 11 Olympic medals in her career, 7 gold, 2 silver, and 2 bronze. She has the second highest Olympic medal count in gymnastics history. It's possible that what we saw on Monday might be the last time we'll see Simone in Olympic competition. At age 27, Simone will be 31 when the Summer Olympics comes to LA in 2028. Simone hasn't announced her intentions for 2028, but it's rare for gymnasts to compete in their 30s. If Simone's career is over, we have a lot of special memories to cherish. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
We must understand the politics of our community, and we must know what part politics play in our lives.
Questions about black voters, their disengagement, lack of information, and support or lack thereof for Democratic candidates have once again taken center stage as Democrats, Republicans, and independent candidates compete for this critical voting bloc. Will black voters abandon Democrats in this election, move historic numbers of votes toward the Republican nominee, or will they continue a decades-long trend of overperforming for Democratic candidates up and down the ballot? The stakes have never been higher for Black America. Tune in to KBLA's new show, The Black Pack, hosted by veteran political strategist Adrian Shropshire, every Friday from 4 to 6 p.m. for a breakdown of the issues, rhetoric, polling, and more this election year. It's The Black Pack with Adrian Shropshire, Fridays from 4 to 6 p.m. exclusively on KBLA Talk 1580.
Texting enrolls you into reoccurring automated text messages. Consent not required to purchase. Message and data rates may apply.
Hey, Dan, how you doing? Haven't seen you around the gym for a while.
Yeah, I've really fallen off. Since I turned 40, I just don't get the results I used to get.
Could be lower testosterone.
Lower T?
Yeah, I went through it a while back. Once you hit 40, your body has less free testosterone. I got Nugenix Total T, and it's made a huge difference for me.
I've seen that ad on TV. Is it for real?
Oh, yeah. The key ingredient is something called Tesnor, which helps boost free and total testosterone levels to help you trim up and stay lean.
And it's made a difference for you?
Man, I feel like I'm in my 20s again, at work, in the gym, and in the bedroom.
Are they still giving out complimentary bottles for people to try it for themselves?
Yeah, you just need to send them a text.
Text LION to 42424 right now for your complimentary bottle of Nugenix Total T, the #1 selling testosterone booster at GNC. Plus, text now and we'll include a bottle of Nugenix Thermo, our most powerful fat incinerator ever, to help you get back into shape fast. Absolutely free. Text LION to 42424. That's LION to 42424.
I occasionally have nerve discomfort in my hands, so the things I love to do
Let's play something, Grandma.
became difficult as I got older.
If you have occasional stabbing and burning in your hands and feet, try Nervive Nerve Relief. Nervive's clinically studied dose of alpha-lipoic acid reduces occasional nerve discomfort in as little as 7 days with continued daily use. Say yes to healthy nerves with Nervive Nerve Relief.
These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
Ooh, I'm so ready for this weekend away with my girls.
Hey, hit the road? How about some free gas?
Free gas? How?
Try new Febreze car for some serious freshness and you can win gas for a full year. Visit Febreze.com to learn more.
Say less.
You may not win, but you're gonna have a fresh smelling whip.
Thanks, DJ Fresh. Now how about some music?
Hey, yo, this next one goes out to new Febreze car for giving you a chance to win free gas.
No purchase necessary. Must be 18 to enter in 73124 for rules and how to enter. Visit Febreze.com.
Less monologue, more dialogue. Tavis Smiley continues right now.
Yeah. This the real one, baby. I'm telling you. Chi-town stand up. South side. We gon' set this party off right. West side. We gon' set this party off right. Man, I promise. She She's so self-conscious. She has no idea what she's doing in college. That major that she majored in don't make no money, but she won't drop out. Her parents will look at her funny. Now, tell me that.
We're talking Chicago this hour. We commenced this hour in conversation with Ariane Meadows and her book, We Are the Culture, Black Chicago's Influence on Everything, as we head toward Chicago, to Chicago. In a couple of weeks for a week of broadcasting live from the Democratic National Convention. Last week in Chicago, it got set off inside of NABJ when Donald Trump showed up and went at it in conversation with three black women. One of those black women is our guest right now. Her name is Kadia Goba. She was a moderator, as I said, and she's a political reporter for Semaphore. Let me give you a little sound of Kadia in conversation with Donald Trump. We'll get that teed up. Let me do this first for Kadia. I will start by asking her to tell me about Semaphore, and then I want to play some sound, Kadia, of you engaging Mr. Trump last week. But tell me, and those who've never heard of Semaphore, about Semaphore as an organization.
Oh, thank you for having me. So, yeah, Semaphore is less than 2 years old. It is a digital platform comprised of a bunch of journalists. We have more of an international flair, but we cover the U.S. politics very intensely. A lot of us are from our political journalists. And we started with the premise that people wanted to understand different sides of the conversation, or we wanted to, I should say, separate news from our opinion. So we're very conscious about putting the news at the top of every article, and then let's say Kadia's view to explain my analysis about it, but just to show you that I haven't talked to all the people, but based on the conversation I have had, this is what I'm coming up with.
We're going to play a clip of you and Donald Trump in just a second, as I promised. But before I do that, now that we've heard a bit more about this relatively new outlet called Semaphore, where you are a political reporter, my next question is how you were selected for this assignment. And let me just say this up front, because I'm not trying to put up on you, and I want you to feel some sort of way. But when this all happened last week, we had a roundtable on this program of some major journalists. And to a person, every one of them was chagrined by the fact that no black male was on that stage. I know that's not your decision, so I'm not putting up on you for that. I'm just reminding the audience that everybody was troubled by the fact that not a black male was on that stage, particularly given Donald Trump's hard push for black male voters and all the stories we've read about him trying to siphon off black male voters. It would have been a perfect opportunity for at least one brother to be on that stage, and I'm not hating on the sisters. I'm only reminding the audience of the conversation we had last week when this story broke, and now I get a chance to ask you as just one person, Kadia, how you were selected to be one of the three to sit with Mr. Trump.
Yeah, so I obviously wasn't a part of the selection process, but I can say that I actually wrote an article about a month ago about black men and their relationship with Donald Trump. I can say that every panelist on there had previously interviewed him, but I can't speak to the process of how they determined that we would be the people that would interview him.
So you had previously interviewed Mr. Trump?
Yep, I interviewed him in June. Yep.
And how did that conversation go?
Yeah, not like this one. I interviewed him. You can read the article on semaphore.com. It is. I interviewed some of his, biggest advocates, or just like friends, people who knew him in the 80s and 90s, Mike Tyson, Darryl Strawberry, Lawrence Taylor. And the interview, I mean, it's funny because I asked him, like, what does he say about people? How does he respond to people who say he is racist? And he, gave a very interesting answer that a lot of media picked up, essentially saying, well, I have black friends. How could I be racist? But, your readers or your listeners can certainly log on and find the article.
Okay.
But he wasn't irate. We talked for 12 minutes, and he did not respond like he did the other day.
Okay. Here is Kadia in conversation, just a little taste of her back and forth with Donald Trump last week in Chicago at NABJ.
really quickly to another question about, you brought up health, Harris. You're an active man. We see you golfing all the time. But if you win, you'll still be president at 82, which is older than Biden is right now.
But not mentally. Look, mentally.
Here's the question.
He's shot. But most people.
Would you consider?
Most people. I know many people in their 80s and their 90s that are in great shape. Some of our greatest leaders. You look at throughout the world history, the greatest leaders, some of the greatest leaders in the world were in their 80s.
But here's the question. Would you consider stepping down if you felt that your health was declining? Or would you?
Oh, absolutely.
And who would make,
I think I'd know.
How would you make that decision?
So in the course of my career, Khadijah, I've interviewed presidents, I've moderated presidential debates, so I know something of this. And it is always the case for any of us, I think, when we find ourselves in a moment like this, we look back at our work. We look back at the moment. One, because when you talk to a president, everybody else is going to see it or hear it or read about it. So you go back and look at your work. In retrospect, you've had a few days now. When you think about what actually happened, again, in the rearview mirror, what do you think? What do you see? What do you feel about that moment?
I mean, I drew him out and got him to actually answer the question. A little more difficult than I would have liked, right? This is a candidate running for president, and you would imagine he would be a little more receptive to just questions, especially around age, considering just what happened with the Democratic Party. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think I don't know. It's not for me to judge, but I got the answer out of it. And for me, as a print journalist, that is probably the end result. That is what I'm looking for, to get the response. Mm-hmm. To the question, yeah, got it. What did you make, or what do you make all these days later of the whole brouhaha? So it's one thing to assess your role. It's one thing to assess your questions, whether you got the answers you wanted. We've heard that. What do you think of the whole brouhaha in retrospect? What part? You mean the actual on stage? I mean the meltdown and the way it's been covered by the media about what happened in that room. You've seen all the coverage. What do you make in retrospect of the way it went down and the way the media has covered what went down? You know, I'm a little sad that, listen, it's not upon me to determine how media covers anything, but I would have liked people to focus on, the criminal justice response that he talked about. Like, that went under the radar. This is a presidential candidate that is on the trail saying he is going to give police officers immunity, right? So I thought it was incumbent upon me to ask him what he meant about that. Are there any differences? And he actually talked about that. There was very little coverage about that. It all boiled down to, him on stage, having a meltdown, which obviously I was severely uncomfortable with. But unfortunately, I would have liked people to focus on some of the answers he did give, just to service the American people. Mm-hmm. When we come forward, in addition to what happened. Yeah. When we come forward, we'll talk more about that, because I think all of our guests on this program last week, and had a number of them talking about this, saw this as a missed opportunity. There was certainly a great deal more commentary about what happened on this program, but broadly speaking, everybody saw it as a missed opportunity. What I hear Khadijah saying is that, it was missed opportunity because there were some answers that he gave that should have been delved into, should have been covered a bit more, but they weren't because of the spectacle that it became. We could debate who's responsible for that spectacle, but I hear a point that there were some answers that were given that we still have not talked about a week later, because that wasn't the focus of the media on what happened in that room. Our guest is Khadijah Goba, political reporter with Semaphore, one of the three women who questioned Donald Trump last week in Chicago. More with her when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
Hope, agency, dignity. This is Tavis Smiley.
Can you dig it? Come on! We asked seniors how to prevent Medicare scams.
My best advice, if you get a phone call, do not talk to the person. These people are well-trained. Don't talk to them.
They don't know me. They're just trying to scam me.
Don't be fooled. Hang up. Just hang up.
Never give out your Medicare number.
They're going to get your number to put in a false claim.
If I get a call from someone
I don't pick up the phone. And should I pick up the phone and they ask for information, then I hang up.
How do you detect Medicare fraud?
Just like I check my credit card statements, I check my Medicare statements monthly.
Scammers can get a hold of your number, order medical devices through your account, and you're not even going to know about it if you don't look at your statement.
Check your statement every month. If you get your statement and you see something that you know you did not have done, you report it.
Call your senior Medicare Patrol.
To report Medicare fraud, call the Senior Medicare Patrol at 855-613-7080.
The possibility of lung cancer can be pretty scary, especially if you're one of approximately 8 million current or former smokers at high risk. That's why SaveByTheScan.org wants you to know that now there's a breakthrough low-dose CT scan that can detect lung cancer early, and it only takes 60 seconds. You stop smoking, now start screening. For an easy quiz to see if you're eligible, visit SaveByTheScan.org. It could save your life. SaveByTheScan.org is brought to you by the American Lung Association's Lung Force Initiative and the Ad Council.
Tavis is like George and Wheezy. He's moving on up. Last year, Tavis was number 45 on the Talkers Magazine list of the 100 most important radio talk show hosts in America. Wait for it. Wait for it. The 2024 list was recently released, and Tavis has jumped to number 33 on the list of the nation's most important talkers, making him the highest-ranked African-American on the coveted roster. Congratulations to Tavis Smiley from all of us at KBLA Talk 1580. We've got you black. More honesty than you can handle. More empowerment than you can imagine. You're tuned in to Tavis Smiley.
Tavis Smiley and Kadia Goba, who's political reporter with Semaphore, and one of the three persons, the three black women who had a chance to sit with Donald Trump in Chicago last week at the NBJ and ask some questions of him. The time was limited, Kadia, with Mr. Trump. Were you happy with what you got out of him in the 35 minutes y'all had with him?
Absolutely not. Like I said before, it was not as fruitful as it should have been. This is a presidential nominee. I expected him to answer the questions, but more importantly, I expected us to get more questions in. So no, there was a lot of, unfortunate things that happened that kind of derailed that, but happy with the questions that we were able to get out of him. And I will add, in terms of the media and how they covered it, sure, it is very important to talk about how he spoke to black women on that stage, how he reacted to some very, questions that a lot of people wanted answers to. But I do think that shying away from actual responses that he did give was a missed opportunity, as you mentioned before.
As one of the three black women on that stage, since you went there, I'm following you. How did you feel in that moment or in retrospect about the way he talked to you three black women?
Oh, yeah. So immediately, at the onset, it just felt, I think I said something like I shrank in my seat. I just kind of felt defeated and like this was going to go really, really bad at the very beginning.
Sure.
I feel like we kind of turned it around a little bit, to get him somewhat on track. But, your audience, and I was just really disappointed for it to start off in that manner and really set the tone.
Yep.
For a group of people did not have a long time to interview this person.
Yep. How did you feel in real time? And I'm wondering if it's different once you had a chance to look back at it. How did you feel in real time about the audience, the laughing, the booing, the hissing? You're interviewing a presidential candidate. This is a room full of black journalists. Did you have any sense in real time that this wasn't looking good on television?
No, I didn't, because as a journalist, you just don't worry about that, right? Again, my job is always to get the nugget, to get the response, to get the answer. I felt like the crowd was responsive, but not
distracting, but it might have been conveyed. It might have conveyed differently on television. But I felt like they laughed when he said something funny, or when somebody on the panel said something funny, but also like gasped when he said something egregious to the reporters. So no, I thought they were responsive. I didn't have. No one had to tell people to quiet down or anything like that.
Yep. When we come forward in our remaining moments with Kadia Goba of Semaphore, I'm going to get inside her and get all up in her business and just ask her, because this is what we media people do, certainly talk show hosts do. Because the time got condensed, it was supposed to be an hour, I think. It only ended up being like 35 minutes because of all the other stuff that we've already talked about. So it got cut down in half, as I understand it. So I know there were other questions that Kadia wanted to ask that she didn't get to ask. So I wonder if she'll be transparent with us and tell us 2 or 3 other questions that she would have asked had she had a chance in that conversation with the president, because I'm just curious. That's just what I do. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
What's your quarrel with the world? You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
If you're like me, 60 and retired, making ends meet, especially here at the supermarket and drugstore, is tough. I'm so blessed to have found benefitscheckup.org. It's a free and confidential website from the National Council on Aging that connected me to $1,200 a year in programs that help pay for food, medicine, utilities, and more. Maybe it can help you. benefitscheckup.org.
You know where you want to go in life, and City National Bank can help. City National knows the dedication it takes to build your vision for the future into a reality, and our team is here for you. We have a wide range of options to help, from personal savings accounts to interest-bearing money market savings accounts and more, all designed to help you get where you want to go. City National, here for every stage of the journey. Learn more at cnb.com. City National Bank is a subsidiary of Royal Bank of Canada, member FDIC.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 believes in community empowerment through the arts. Tia Chucha Central Cultural is on a mission to transform community in the Northeast San Fernando Valley and beyond through ancestral knowledge, the arts, literacy, and creative engagement. The Northeast San Fernando Valley has a population of about 500,000, the size of the city of Oakland, yet it has no bookstores, art galleries, or full-fledged cultural spaces until Tia Chuchas opened its doors in 2001. Founded by renowned poet and activist Luis Rodriguez, Tia Chuchas Cultural Center provides a year-round free or low-cost arts and literacy bilingual intergenerational programming in mural painting, music, dance, writing, visual arts, healing art sessions, and healing talking circles. Activities also include Mexica, Aztec dance, indigenous cosmology, philosophy, and 2 weekly open mic nights, one in Spanish, the other in English. In addition, they host author readings, film screenings, and art exhibits. To express yourself, heal yourself, attend an event, or volunteer, please visit www.tiachucha.org. That's TIACHUCHA.org. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Hey, John, why so glum?
I just got let go. The company's downsizing. This is the 3rd time in the last 2 years. I'm done with this.
Have you thought about My Computer Career? I've heard they can train you for a career in IT in just a few months, including cybersecurity and the basics of AI. And you don't need prior training or experience. Now that's a recession-resistant career.
Wow, thanks. I'll check them out.
Go to mycomputercareer.edu and take the free career evaluation. mycomputercareer.edu.
Financial aid is available for qualified students, including the GI Bill.
Helping to make you the most knowledgeable person in your circle of friends. This is Tavis Smiley.
All right, Kadia Goba of Semaphore. There are always things we want to get to, even when you are given an hour with the president, which is rare. At the end of that hour, there's still stuff you want to get to that you didn't. Y'all's hour got cut down to 35 minutes. So you mind telling me a couple of things that you wanted to ask him or would have asked him had you had the time?
Absolutely. Thanks for the opportunity. And if the Trump campaign is listening, I challenge them to respond to this. I wanted to ask him about the First Step Act. He told me in the summer that he would expand the First Step Act. at a moment when a lot of Republicans want the opposite, and I wanted to understand what he wanted to do around the First Step Act. I also wanted to talk to him about Medicaid. He said he wouldn't cut Social Security or Medicare. He has not said that about Medicaid, and I want to get him on the record for that. Also, really wanted to go in about why he tweeted or put on social media in quotes that Kamala Harris was a highly talented politician and that people could just ask her great mentor, Willie Brown. I was very curious about that, and I wanted to get him on the record about exactly what he meant in that instance.
I'm laughing because Kadia, if you'd ask him that last question, that thing would have become far worse than what it was. If you had set him up, I hear what you're getting at. But if you had set him up for that Willie Brown, Kamala Harris conversation about their relationship back in San Francisco back in the day, do you have any idea where that would have gone?
I mean, it was my number 4 question for a reason. But
wow.
But you know, it's interesting. I mean, I thought the age question would set him off, but he actually committed to stepping down if he did experience some decline. Again, who wrote about that? I mean, we did, but did people write about that? Those are important questions I think American voters should know.
Yeah, I am bracing myself for this debate if and when it ever happens. So there's a debate now. Speaking of debate, there is debate about whether or not it will happen on September the 4th, as Mr. Trump has proposed on Fox, or whether it will happen on September 10th on ABC, as he initially agreed to when Joe Biden was the nominee. So those are your 2 dates right now. September 4 on Fox, potentially. September 10 on ABC, potentially. I have no idea. But those are the 2 dates that we're hearing right now for a potential debate. And I'm anxious to see this, as is the nation. And the media has not really, gone in on this Willie Brown Kamala question. It's been out there. Certainly the right is talking about it. But I think if, in fact, a debate happens, you're going to get your answer to that Willie Brown thing. Because I can't imagine that Donald Trump is going to let that moment slide by in a debate. He's going to hit that thing.
I think so. I mean, the question has to be asked, right? It's not really fair game if he just blurts some kind of sexist rant. That's not.
Yeah, but I think I agree, Kadia. But I think, as I said earlier on this program weeks ago, he wouldn't do it that way. He will use it as a response to all the felonies and the Stormy Daniels and the E. Jean Carroll. When Kamala goes that way, he's going to come back with Willie Brown. So he won't lead with that. He's going to come back to it. So we shall see. This thing is going. I hope it doesn't get as ugly as I think it's going to get. If they do get on stage, it ain't going to be cute. I've been telling people, if you think NABJ was bad, wait for the debate when they go, head to head. I'm not. I want to see it. I got my popcorn ready, but it may be depressing. We may be in the cesspool then, but I digress for now. Kadia Goba is political reporter for Semaphore, one of the 3 sisters on stage with Donald Trump last week. Her second time having interviewed the former president, so she knows something about what it means to go a tete-a-tete with Donald Trump. Kadia, thank you for your time. All the best to you.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate the opportunity.
My honor. More of Tavis Smiley when we come forward.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.